I gazed across Loch Carron to the Bealach a hill pass over the Applecross mountains. The Applecross Peninsula was at one time one of the remotest areas in Scotland, accessible only by boat or by a notoriously treacherous single-track road that climbs over 2,000 feet up the face of a mountain. There is now an easier winding road round the coastal fringes as far as Torskeg. You turn off round the corner from Shieldig. The view back over is breathtaking. Shieldig is a very picturesque string of whitewashed cottages hugging the banks of the loch. It's framed by a wonderful backdrop of craggy heather-clad peaks and crowned by the mighty bulk of Benalligan. The sea around here was teeming with herring, so much so that the Vikings named the place Herring Bay, Sildvik. Just below at Jorunner is Angora Ecosse, where luxury knitwear is made, and Angora and Hebridean wool can be bought. We then pass a wonderful little red-roofed cottage and soon arrive at Arheslig. This easier winding road provides a welcome alternative to the nervous driver than having to face the horrors of the notorious Pass of the Cattle. But this is no picnic either. Each steep stretch is followed by another steep stretch, with the odd sharp turn thrown in for good measure, and all the time you're left hoping that you're not going to meet a car in the narrow single-track road and have to reverse vertically to the previous passing place, which is probably built in a precipice. I pulled into a lay-by and got out for a breather. Arheslig sat in its sheltered bay below. A few miles on I passed the little hamlet of Kenmore and then Fernmore, where I noticed this house. I had to stop to take a closer look. As I headed down the west coast of the peninsula, I came across one of the most impressive beaches in Britain, with sand dunes almost 70 foot high above the shore. This beach is popular for picnics and sand sledging. Sand was the location used by the BBC TV series Monty Hall's Great Escape. Beachcomber Cottage can be seen in the grassy macher just beyond the beach. This whole peninsula has been known as Applecross for over 1,300 years. The village here, with its excellent inn, is actually known locally as Shore Street. It's always very busy. The little hamlet of Milltown is situated beyond an avenue of trees, about 200 yards to the south of the village. Its setting is absolutely stunning. A row of houses and a narrow single main road are all that separate the wonderful reed-fringed Lochan from the sea at Applecross Bay. As I headed further south, I came across a viewpoint overlooking the attractive little village of Ardú, with the island of Raasay on the horizon. I headed on down to the end of the road at Torskeg and made my way to the pier. There used to be a motorboat service to Kyle from here, but that ceased a long time ago. I headed back into the village. There is a path that leads from here to Loch Carron in the south of the Applecross Peninsula. As I wandered about the village, a goose and some hens were roaming about freely. There was a sense of timelessness about this peaceful place. I decided to cross the small wooden bridge. The goose decided to follow me. It followed me over the bridge as well. I had made a new friend here. Applecross reminded me a lot of the Outer Hebrides. It's almost as hard to get to as well. I decided to head back. The goose took off and landed in the river below me. I certainly had made a friend. As I approached Ardú, I passed a hiker. On the far side of the bay I noticed a jetty. As I rounded the corner I noticed a group of young people getting ready to launch their kayaks. I had to negotiate a flock of sheep as I entered the village. I decided to take a walk back up for a better view of the houses huddled round the bay below. I remember as a young boy heading to Lewis in the mail boat from Bealach. It was the Loch Seaforth at the time. It used to stop offshore opposite Applecross, and a large rowing boat would come out to collect passengers, mail, provisions and anything else they needed from a large hatch a few feet above the waterline. Those were the days. I wish I had my camera then. Across the bay, Commentery could be seen in the distance. I headed back up the coast. The next stop was Commentery, a lovely little village and the home of 2 churches and the only school in the peninsula. It was low tide when I arrived and the harbour was not to be seen at its best. This is probably the most densely populated area of the peninsula. On the far bank, Ardú could be picked out in the distance. I soon arrived back at Applecross, or Shore Street as it's known locally. Applecross is a wonderful hidden little corner of the West Highlands, and with that I headed back by the Pass of the Cattle, the Bealach. I thought I had arrived at the top when I saw a road snaking into the clouds. I couldn't believe it. The summit was engulfed in mist and it was starting to rain. I'd reached the top with only one scary bit, squeezing past a camper that had passed a lay-by. I'd hoped to record the trip down, but it was cloudy and wet up there. This breathtaking road is the nearest thing there is in Scotland to an alpine pass. It's over 2,000 feet high, over 2/3 of them in row, and should not be missed. I stopped near the bottom where the fast-flowing Russell Burn flows under the road. I came across a rainbow as I reached the bottom of the pass. They say where it touches down you can find a pot of gold. The visit to Applecross was my pot of gold.